listening to the Idea Crew podcast with Jen and Emma. This week we're talking wedding traditions and superstitions. Similar to the last topic we covered, which was all about seating plans and family politics, there's lots to get through. So if you're okay, Em, we'll just jump straight into this one because there's a lot more questions that we've gathered from the Instagram DMs. And they're quite lengthy questions too, some of them. So lots to get through.
Yep, I'm happy. Let's go.
Okay. Our first question came in. Oh, the same as the last episode. We're going to keep these anonymous because some of them are sort of sensitive. People didn't want us to share their names, so we're just going to keep all questions anonymous. But thank you so much if you got in touch, because some of these are really juicy, good ones. So we'll start with this one. So, do I have to have a hen do? My friends want me to have one, but I'm not sure it's something I want.
You don't have to do anything. You don't want, I would say. Um, if you're not into that kind of thing, then don't have one, or have something similar that's not a traditional hen do where you all go out and dress up and get drunk. You can do something smaller and intimate and just go to the cinema or something. Do whatever you want to do, but don't make people force you to do something you feel uncomfortable with, because they probably only want to do it because they want to go out and get drunk. What I would say is a hen do is a nice place for the female in your life to get to know each other before the wedding, but it's not essential.
What did you do for your hen do?
I had two. So the first one was my cousin, who was my maid of honor, arranged for me and some close friends to go to Bath, and we did like a cocktail making session. Had some nice food. It started very rowdy, but it ended quite early, so we weren't too awful. It was a really nice day. And then the second one was my cousin and my really good friend went to Disneyland Paris, and they did it as a treat. And we spent a couple of nights in Paris, went to Disneyland. I've got my Disney jumper on today, so it's all fitting. But it was really nice. What did you do, Jen?
I found it very difficult to relinquish the control. That's what I did. If I In hindsight, I think I should have pushed a little bit harder to organise it myself, because it was a lovely weekend and I had a great time, and all the people that I wanted to be there were there, and it was really nice to spend that time all together. And I really liked that we were staying. So we had a weekend in London. We had a lovely shared house, so everybody was in the same accommodation. There were communal areas, so you could have breakfast together, or there were lounge areas together. And then we did different activities throughout the weekend. So we did things like Lucky Voice on the Friday night, which was really rowdy till the very end, I would say. Really fun. Loved every minute of singing Islands in the Stream with our good friend Robert Mills. And then we did the I think they call it schooner now, but at the time it was called the hot tub tugboat. So you basically get into these two boats, but you sit in hot water, which is heated by a wood fire. And honestly, I don't think I've ever laughed as much in my entire life with my sister-in-law's attempt at navigating the Thames. So we were split into two. So the first boat came off the pontoon straight out the end and then went left up the Thames. Our boat came left off the pontoon directly into another boat opposite.
I just remember going round and round and round in circles for a little while.
Yep. Then we went round in circles for what seemed like a long time. managed to get out of the little pontoon to turn left, but then again, round and round in circles. And I think even at one point we crashed into one of the bridges.
Yeah.
Then we had to change designated drivers because well, I don't think we could even see the other boat at that point. But honestly, the funniest thing I've ever experienced. And when you're in that position of trying to helm and trying to figure out, because the rudder is basically you have to turn the helm one way and it goes the opposite way. So it is quite confusing if you haven't done something like that before. It's a bit like when you first learn to drive and you're trying to parallel park or reverse into a space. Your brain has to sort of think about things in the opposite to what you're used to doing. And it was obviously very frustrating for my sister-in-law, which made it even more hilarious for everybody else. So I just remember being at the front, literally sniggering away with everybody else while my sister-in-law and her sister were trying to navigate their ways through helming. And my sister-in-law's sister is a really good she's a very good calming influence. She doesn't really get stressed about things. And she sees the funny side in everything, but she was sort of coaching her sister through oh, it's going to be okay. Do not get stressed. And the whole time, I just thought it was hilarious. Um,
It was very, very funny.
Maybe not the journey back to the accommodation.
Oh,
Extremely traumatized. So everybody was super hungover by this point. I think because it had been quite a long day. We'd been in the hot tub, so everyone had relaxed, had a drink, and then were really tired. And we decided to catch the water taxi back most of the way back to the accommodation. But as we were getting onto the water taxi, my sister-in-law's sister's toe, big toe, got caught underneath the gangplank. So basically, the gangplank was attached to the boat and moving up and down on the Thames, obviously, and just the most imperfect timing. She was wearing flip-flops, stepped on to the gangplank with her first foot, and then sort of left her second foot behind, and the gangplank came down, crushed her toe. I've honestly never seen. It was terrifying, but she didn't even cry.
no, she really held it together, and there was one person wrapping up her toe in a old tissue. There was a couple of them still drinking and singing sea shanties, and then everybody else was feeling a bit seasick. And it just seemed to go on and on and on, didn't it, Jen? And we all got off that boat and we were all just like, right, got back to the accommodation. We all sort of just relaxed for half an hour, and then we all got really hungry, and that's when the Uber Eats started to arrive.
But even then, Poppy and her toe were just not like nothing had happened. Oh, could somebody just get me some ice? Popped her foot in ice. Could somebody just get me a tissue because it's bleeding again? Got her a tissue.
She really troopered on, didn't she?
She honestly, I've never seen anything like it. Fast forward like a year and a half, and I did exactly the same thing at home in what could only be described as a dog and very high heels accident. Complete opposite reaction. Literally had a mental breakdown. Thought my shoes were gonna have to get cut off. Honestly, I just then had to have my foot up for the next 2 months and started slowly declining in my mental health to the point where I threatened to sue the marketing exec that I was working with on my day job. Not the organisation. I told her that I would sue her personally if the campaign failed. Luckily, she saw the funny side and had sympathised with my condition from day one. So thank you, Hayley, for your understanding comments. I think from a hen do perspective, if you don't want to have one, don't do it. And just be like you said, just be really nice about it. Say, look, I know that you want to spend all that time with me. I really appreciate the thought, but equally, it's just not for me. I'd rather that you all came round maybe a couple of weeks before the wedding. I host a little smorgasbord of, delicious treats. We chat through funny stories about our friendships or whatever, and then you all go home and that's it. Next question. Do I have to have bridesmaids? I have a sister and loads of close friends.
No, you don't have to have bridesmaids. I've been to a few weddings where there's been no bridesmaids, and everything runs smoothly and it all works. And so you, on the day, you don't technically need bridesmaids. I think they do come in handy um, when you need to go to the loo, or if you need somebody to make sure that um, I don't know, the band is turned up. But that tends to be groomsmen that do that type of thing, or a wedding planner. So no, you don't. You definitely don't. And I nearly only had. I had two bridesmaids. I had a friend and my cousin Lucy, and I nearly only had one. Um, no,
Is there a drama behind that, or were they going to get fired?
no, I just didn't have anybody that Lucy would have always been one. Um, and then my friend Sophie, we'd been friends for a long time. And I just thought, oh, actually, I'll just have one person because it would just be easier to find a dress that everybody agrees on. It'll be easier to manage. But then I sort of reflected and thought I'll have Sophie as well. Um, but actually, on the wedding day, bridesmaids don't do very much apart from hold your bouquet and fluff your dress. But you can get other people quite willing to step in and do them things.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because if you don't have bridesmaids, who is going to fluff your dress out and who is going to hold your bouquet? And in my sister's case, who is going to attempt to get the lip gloss stain off the dress as you came from the church to the venue? Like, who else does all of that?
Well, you don't have that. You don't have that. But you just then go and ask one of your friends.
Yeah.
I think that the advantage of having bridesmaids is you do have that support network around you. And on the run up, when you're feeling stressed or you've got somebody talking to you about having to invite Auntie Maud or something like that, you've got somewhere to go to vent that frustration and help sort through some of them issues. And then on the day, you have got somebody to get ready with, and you have got somebody to help do your bustle up and hold your um help you go to the loo and all of that type of thing. um but realistically, if you do have friends, you say here that you've got lots of family and lots of friends, so I'm assuming it's more of you don't know how to whittle them down.
Mm.
So you will have them people around willing to help you. You just don't have to call them a bridesmaid.
I also I remember the conversations that I had with my maid of honor before my wedding, and it was things like, "Oh my God, what do I do about this?" Or how where do I even start with this? Or I don't know how to find this kind of supplier. And then I remember the conversation with my sister-in-law the morning of the ceremony day, which was the Friday. I was upstairs at my sister's house getting ready, doing my makeup. I'd had my hair done, so I was just doing my makeup. And I remember she came in just at the right time to help me with my necklace. She was ready to go. They were all ready to go on time, which was a miracle if you've ever met my youngest sister. And the things that she was saying were just calming me. I didn't think that I was that stressed or anxious or nervous or anything like that, but I just remember her coming into the room and I just felt so much calmer. And the things that she was talking to me about just really made me relax.
Yeah,
And if I hadn't had bridesmaids, I wouldn't have had that. I didn't go with loads of friends and loads of family. I've got quite a big family, so I'm one of five siblings, and two of them are girls. So that was quite an easy pick for me. And then my sister-in-law, very close to her. And then I've had a best friend since we were three. So I think if I would do it again, I think I'd probably have more, because I think there's more people that mean a lot to me. They did then, but I thought I was making it easier for everybody at the time. And I always find that being a bridesmaid is quite a lot of pressure, because you have to be not on the job, but you are. you're in all the pictures, you're walking down the aisle, you're making sure that the bride's okay, you're the one that's there opening the door for the makeup artist and the hair people to come in and all of that kind of thing the morning of, and then you know, you're helping in the afternoon, and what else is there that you need, and blah blah blah. So you do kind of feel like you're on the event job.
Yeah,
And I really wanted the women in my life to enjoy my wedding. I didn't want them to feel like, oh, I'm going to have to wear the same dress as these 5 other people. I'm going to be in all the pictures. But being on the other end of that, I think now I have a slightly different perspective of it. And actually, I think it's a real honour to be part of somebody's bridal party. But equally, if bridesmaids isn't your vibe and you're quite an independent person and you don't really need anyone fluffing out your dress or anything like that, then I think it's also okay not to have them
yeah,
because of the cost mainly.
yeah,
Everyone's gonna have their hair done, everyone's gonna have their makeup done. Potentially you're getting like 3 to 6 dresses, and it all depends on what you want to pay for, what they're comfortable paying for. There tends to be a lot of questions that I see on DIY Facebook groups. Oh, do I ask my bridesmaids to pay for their dress? My personal opinion is no, because you're probably guiding them with what they should be wearing, whether the colour or the actual dress itself. I don't think they should have to pay for that because it's not their choice. Shoes you can kind of get away with because most of the time the bridesmaid dresses are full length, so wear whatever shoes you want. Then you've got to think about hair and makeup. Do you want them all to look polished, and do you want them all to I just think that there's a lot to think about.
yeah. In a past life, I was a makeup artist and I did a lot of work on weddings. Um, and the two things that I sort of learned in during that time is one, if you have more than three bridesmaids, you'll need multiple makeup artists and hairstylists. Otherwise, you'll be starting at 4 o'clock in the morning, and nobody wants to be the 4 o'clock slot. And two, as you were saying that your sister-in-law was that calming influence on the day, it's really important to make sure that you pick bridesmaids that are calm and do have that unflappable nature about them. Because I've been to a few weddings in the morning where, I don't know, something, breakfast hasn't been delivered, or can't find the hairpiece, or somebody's lost a nipple pasty, and all of a sudden the angst in the house or the hotel room or wherever you're getting married starts to lift, and it's not a good place to be. And then it becomes the job of that makeup artist to try and calm things down. And so when you're picking your bridesmaids, think about that type of energy, because the morning of the wedding is really stressful because there's lots of moving parts. Everybody's emotions are running high. Everybody's nervous. Everybody's excited. There's emotions. There's often gift giving that's emotional and things. So you need the people there that are calm. So if you do have a cousin that you're really close with but is manic, maybe get them involved in a different way, so they're not a bridesmaid, but they've been part of choosing your dress, or they've helped you make the invites, or they've come to you for the taste it, so they feel part of it, but they're not that manic influence on the day. Things to think about.
Have you been a bridesmaid before, Em?
No. Oh yeah, that is an absolute lie. That is an absolute lie. Yes, I have. My cousin Lucy, I was a bridesmaid for, and that was a real DIY wedding. It was like an I do barbecue in her house, in her back garden. So it was a lot of work because we did everything ourselves. So I was decorating and the groom was cooking the food. So it's real like hands on. So that, yeah, I was on the job,
On the job.
on the job, handing out canapes, all of that sort of thing.
I think I'm very close to Catherine Heigl 27 dresses scenario. I've been a bridesmaid. I probably should have counted before we did the episode. I would say 7 to 10 times. which I think is quite a lot.
No, it is. My friend Sophie, I don't know how many exactly, but she's probably teetering on 10 or 11. And she always said to me that we're really worried about if and when she gets married, what she does to sort of reciprocate that.
Mm,
But you don't need to. You need to have the people be your bridesmaid who you want. If you've been asked to be a bridesmaid for me, but you only want 3 bridesmaids and I'm not one of them, as long as you tell me nicely, it's not my nothing to do with me. I can have
mm,
my own emotion about it, but you don't need to carry that worry and guilt because you don't want 15 bridesmaids, do you?
no.
You just have your sister and everybody will be fine.
I also think that as I get older, I'm a better bridesmaid than I was maybe the first time, second time, third time, because having a drink in your hand as the bride, I think, is quite important. Having somebody carry your your bag. So when you're having your ceremony, who's carrying your bag?
Mhm.
And just thinking about all these little things that maybe the bride hasn't covered off quite yet because she hasn't got to it. I also
I was going to say maybe we could do an episode on all the things you've learnt being a bridesmaid.
There is a lot of things. First of all, never go on the hen do that you have planned for everyone else. But we can cover that off in another episode.
I think we should. One for the bridesmaids.
I also think just one last thing. The one thing that I wanted from bridesmaids, from my perspective, is I wanted the symmetry in the pictures. So some people have 5 bridesmaids, some people have 7. I went for an even number because I wanted, as the bride, to be in the middle and have equal numbers on either side. That's the level of detail that I was working through in my mind. Okay, that was quite a long time talking about bridesmaids. I could go all day, I think. Next question, literally dreading the first dance. Can we get away with not doing one?
I think I'm going to sound like a bit like a broken record. Of course, you don't have to do one. You can do whatever you want on your wedding day. Um, and actually, there's lots of things that you can do instead of a first dance. Um, you could get if you prep your groomsmen and your bridesmaid, you can have a bit of a group dance. You can encourage people to get on the dance floor in other ways. Danielle from a couple of weeks ago was saying about how you do like a speed round photo. So if you're doing the good funky tune, get the bride and groom or the wedding party on the dance floor, and then people run in, get funny photos and run off and stay on the floor and dance behind you. That, you know, as long as I think you get the music on, people out their seats and up, that's what the first dance is really there for, to get the party started. So as long as you think of a way to do that, karaoke moment, champagne tower, donut eating contest, I don't know, whatever it is, just get people up off their seats and on that dance floor, and then you're half of the people will stay and the other half of the people will go back to the bar, but you just need something to get it going. It doesn't have to be a first dance.
Did you have a first dance?
Yeah, I'm a ballroom dancer, so I made my
Ah,
husband learn a foxtrot, which he was way better at than I was, because I completely freaked out and kind of forgot what moves we were supposed to be doing. And I was literally looking at my dancing teacher because she came to the wedding, and I was literally looking at her, trying to find her in the crowd so she could tell me what move was next. Um, but yeah, it was cute. And then I got my dad, oh, and then my garter and he kicked it across. That was awkward. That's what I remember from my first dance, when my dad and I had a little sort of to and fro. My garter fell off as I was dancing with my dad.
so you basically had a football match with your garter between you and your father.
Yeah, gross. He was,
Oh god, I just can't. What garters? What's the point?
I don't know, they're uncomfortable as well.
isn't it just sort of scraping between the legs there all day? I didn't wear one because I didn't understand it.
More like the pressure of having an elastic band around your leg.
What's it for?
Oh, I've no idea. Somebody bought it for me on the morning of, so I put it on.
I think when I was doing a little bit of research for this episode, I think it was basically originally for the groom to take it off on the wedding day, give it to the best man, who would then give it to the person who had caught the bouquet.
As like a courtship.
I think so.
Weird.
Yeah, pointless. Like arranged sort of
Under
marriage.
I don't know.
Yeah, not for me.
Not for me.
Okay, so first dance, do it if you want. You don't have to do it. There are other ways that you can bring people onto the dance floor. Um, Wedding favors, question mark. Worth the spend?
I would say only if they're meaningful. So I wouldn't go out and spend £200 on a load of plastic wedding bubbles or something like that just to put on the place setting. If it's a meaningful keepsake from the day, um, or a little bottle of gin, or people would appreciate it. But you'll attest to this when we go up and do a clear down after you clear up a lot of wedding favors and put them in a pile. So they're not important to people. I think there's a cute way to make a wedding favor the name tag as well. So you're doing two in one. You don't. If you have got a limited budget, I wouldn't say go and spend some of it on wedding favors. I would put another bottle of wine on each table or something like that, rather than
Yeah, I would suggest the same. Consumable gifts
yeah,
are better than trinkets, I
yeah,
would say. Although one of the best wedding favors I've ever seen was at a Christmas wedding that I went to. It was like early December and it was really Christmassy. And as soon as you walked into the venue, you just got a waft of Christmas. And the wedding favors were mini Yankee candles in
love,
Christmas scent.
lovely.
I thought this is the best idea I've ever seen.
Is that where
Who?
is that where you got the idea of, because we do a wedding scent, so you can have specialized scented candles for your table. And now we've just started to offer like little tea lights in that scent too, that you can do as your wedding favors in like a little canvas bag or something.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea.
And then when you take that home, you light your little candle, which is your wedding favor. You've picked up your husbands or your plus ones because they've just left it on the side because boys aren't really that bothered about candles until they smell it in their house.
Hmm.
And then every time you smell that specific scent, you think about that person's wedding. I talk about these wedding favor candles all the time, but at least once a week this comes up in my life. And this wedding was probably 4 or 5 years ago.
It's a really, really good idea.
What we did for our wedding is I liked the idea of having something consumable. I also obviously loved the Yankee Candle idea, but it was a bit out of our budget. So I looked at other options and we ended up going with personalized M&Ms. So I chose two different colors. You could also have writing or imagery on either side. You got the option to have both. So you can have a picture of you and your future husband, bride, whatever it is, on one side, and then the date of the wedding on the back. I chose to have Mr. and Mrs. in case our wedding got cancelled because of COVID. I wanted to then obviously be able to use them again. Bagged them all up and weighed them all out to make sure everyone had the same. I don't remember clearing up any.
And we were all eating them. And then you put all the leftovers in like a nice glass jar, so people were eating them and then go and fill in their little bag up again to
Yeah,
take them.
secretly fuming about that because I wanted to go home and eat them all, but we still had some left over, and I think you get a 1 kilogram bag or something, and it was really cost effective. And the little Hessian bags didn't cost that much either. I tried to buy them off Facebook Marketplace. I was reusing things, blah blah blah. Um, but yeah, consumables. But also, as Em said, if you haven't got the budget, or if it comes out really expensive for what you want, just push it into another bottle of wine or something like that. People would appreciate that more, I think.
Yeah.
Is throwing the bouquet still a thing? You see it on movies all the time, but can't remember a wedding where this has happened. Did you throw yours?
Yes.
Did you?
I think so, and then ran and got it back because it's expensive. Thank you. Done that.
Who caught it at your wedding?
I can't remember, Jen.
Mm,
7 years ago.
I didn't throw mine, A, because I didn't understand the point, and B, it cost a lot of money to have real flowers, and C, we ended up using the bridesmaid bouquets and my bouquet dotted around the venue.
As deco, yeah.
Yeah, not then going to throw it up in the air, risking the chance it's going to fall on the floor and smash into a million pieces.
No. I unless there was like a plan where you were gonna throw it in inverted commas to someone and they were, you'd already arranged for that person to then be proposed to, if there's a thing around it, I wouldn't throw it. I'd just put it in a nice vase, put it on the bar, make it feel like part of the day. Make sure you put them in water, though, otherwise they'll wilt by the time you get them home. Because
Mm,
they're normally really good flowers. The bouquet, the bride's bouquet is normally one of the most expensive thing in the florist budget. So make sure somebody puts it in water or you've got a vase ready to go so that you can take it home and then you can get it dried or you can just have it on your dining room table. They don't throw it and smash it up.
no, it's it's not a thing in 2023 onwards.
No, I don't think so.
Next question. Well, there's a couple of questions around the same thing. So speeches. What do I do if my future husband isn't keen on public speaking?
Oh, I won't worry about it. There's a few options. Don't force him to do it because it would just be awful for everybody involved. He'll be nervous. He won't be very good at it. And all the guests will be feeling awkward. So don't make somebody do something just because it's a tradition. I think there's lots of things that you could do. You could maybe get the groom's mum, to do something to make her feel part of the day because I think they often get forgotten.
Mm,
Speak on his behalf. You could, maybe he's quite good at writing, so he could write a song or a poem, get the band to play it or something, or he could pre-record something. Bride could do it. That's, because basically the groom's speech is about thanking everybody for coming and making your day special, saying how beautiful their partner is, and that's the premise of their speech. So the bride could do that, or the bride, or the groom's mum, or anyone.
yes. As the bride, thank you so much for everyone for coming. I think I look stunning. Cheers to me.
Exactly, exactly. And if you're having a same sex marriage, both grooms could do it, or both brides could do it, or you could nominate one. Um, I wouldn't worry though. Whoever you want to do a speech on the day, and same as if the bride's father is petrified of public speaking, don't make him do one either. Find somebody else that could, and pick a best man that is good at speaking, because the best man speech is the one that carries it.
Have I told the story about my dad's speech at my wedding yet? Have I
No.
covered that? No. So, my dad suffered a stroke in 2018, 2019, and he's I definitely know where I get a lot of my traits from because he's very determined. He has a lot of commitment when he says he's going to do something. He basically vowed to recover as fully as he could. So he spent, I would say, 12 to 18 months recovering from his stroke, building back that arm strength, leg strength, being able to walk properly again, fine-tuning his sort of hand-eye coordination to very teeny tiny detail. And he's basically as good as he was before in all aspects. But one thing that has changed is that he's now an emotional guy, whereas before he was very much not a robot, but very reserved, very careful with his words, very conscious of others, and just very considered in what he was saying. Now, not so much. He gets into trouble a lot because he just says what comes to his mind, and that comes out first. But when it comes to public speaking and talking about his children now, he's very emotional about it. Whereas never before that. You know, kids can always do better. You should have tried harder, was his general consensus throughout, particularly my education. So we had prepared. So what we had agreed together, because I wanted to make sure that he was comfortable, I wanted to make sure that he didn't feel like he had to do it if he didn't want to do it. So we had a really open conversation, and I came with a solution. I said, look, I understand if you don't want to, because you haven't actually done any public speaking since you had the stroke. He used to do presentations in front of parish councils and all that kind of thing. He hadn't done anything like that since the stroke. So I can sympathise with that, because public speaking is quite tough, and it's your daughter's wedding. So it's not just any old public speaking, it's quite a big platform. And I'd already spoken to my brother, and we'd sort of come up with this plan together that him and my dad would write the speech together, so that my brother knew the speech inside and out. He knew what my dad was trying to say. He knew how it was written. He was very much there to support my dad in the delivery of this speech. And we decided that if dad couldn't do it on the day, that's absolutely fine. And my brother would step in and do it for him. So I think we'd done our big entrance into the venue, and my brother had already told me, he'd already come over and he said, I'm going to be doing the speech. You know, Dad's decided that he's comfortable with me doing it, so that's what the plan is. I was like, that's absolutely fine, because we'd already talked about it. It wasn't going to be a surprise to me. And Ian finished his speech, and then he was handing over to my brother. And I just remember Ian handing over to my brother, and my brother was like, no, it wasn't even in the microphone, but he was sat over to my right hand side, and I saw him say, no, it's not me, it's Dad. Then handed the mic over to Dad, and every single female family member just burst into tears. And we're all there like, oh my God. Oh my God. And it was honestly one of the most magical moments of my whole life. I will never forget that. And I don't think any of us will. And I think it's because we all know what it took him to get to that point. It's just magical.
Oh, nice.
The next question, is how long is too long for a speech?
I've thought about this in advance, and I've thought about some of the ones that I've heard. I think no more than 5 minutes per speech, unless there's some kind of entertainment value or pre-production kind of thing. So like a funny activity or a film or something that's been pre-thought out. You see them online, don't you? All the funny ways that best men have done sort of funny little things. And I do think so. I would say 5 minutes for most, but if the best man is good and it's their sort of skill to entertain a crowd, then they can push it a little bit, because I think that's where the entertainment comes for the guests. I think the father and the groom speech for that really close family is the most important bit for the bride and groom, but for the guests, if it's a good best man speech, that's where it's at. So I think
Have
you
you,
could probably push it a bit longer.
have you seen that it's either a TikTok or a reel. I think it was even before TikTok was a thing. There was this video that went viral of this father of the bride who started his speech off but ran out of the room.
Ah,
Then this video starts playing of this father of the bride basically on his own little James Bond adventure, driving an Aston Martin, jumping out of a plane, blah blah blah. And I think it's all tied into his daughter's cuddly toy from her childhood or something. But I remember thinking at the end of watching that video that this hasn't got anything to do with your daughter. You've just taken nice little budget for yourself, made your own little James Bond movie, and hilarious, but borderline inappropriate there.
but if that was a best man, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, best man, different rules.
Yeah, I think they can push it. But if they're nervous and they're not very funny, which not everybody in your life can be amazing at doing that kind of thing, I would give license to somebody that you know is gonna. And I would, if I was a best man and you had an idea, run it past a few of the other groomsmen, but keep it a complete secret and don't ask permission. Because if you say, "Oh, I'm going to do this thing where I've got a video and I'm going to talk about a stripper and I'm going to talk about this," the groom would say, "No, don't do that." But actually, you need that. You don't need permission. They've given you permission to do a speech. Push it a bit. I think it's funny.
I also think if you tell them 5 minutes, they're probably going to go for 10 to 15 to 20. I would always say 2 minutes max.
And then it'll be 5 minutes.
And it'll be 5 minutes and everyone's a winner.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Is it tradition to wear a veil or is it a preference?
I don't really know the tradition of the veil.
So I Googled this before this episode because I didn't wear a veil for mine, and then I was worried that I was going to have bad luck forever because I didn't. Um, but Google says that veils are inappropriate if you are marrying for the second time or third time, blah, blah, blah. Basically, if it's not your first wedding, or if you're pregnant.
So that's signaling it's something to do with virtue
Yeah.
because you're not no longer virtuous woman. So it might be something to do with like hiding your modesty. I would say if you think it looks pretty, wear one. If you don't want to wear one, don't wear one. It's my answer for every single question. Do what you want.
Do what you want, no one cares. I also think that if you think back to, I was trying to go for timeless bride, so that when I look back at my photos in 20 years' time, I'm not going to look back on them like it was an 80s wedding. Because they had like full blown, like their veils were like headband thing with a poofy bit on the top
And
and then straight out. And like the puffier veil, the better. That's not timeless, guys, because you now, I have older friends on Facebook. They're now sharing their 50 years married to blah, my beautiful wife. Your wedding pictures are not timeless. You can tell that that was 50 years ago.
it's not always a bad thing though, Jen.
But also, things change so quickly. Like, I probably will look back in 20 years and be like, what on earth was I thinking? But that's one less thing to
Yeah.
pick at. Just take the veil off. And then do you wear it all day? When do you take it off?
Um, you take it off for the after the ceremony, I think. I had a veil, but it was one that just pinned in the back and it went down the back. It didn't go over my face. It was just like it sort of went down the back, and I took it off after the ceremony.
I mean, I'm quite budget conscious. They're not cheap.
No, that's what. Yeah, it's a bit of a waste of money if it's not doing much for you.
No, no surprises. I did not have a veil.
But then, have you seen the sort of beautiful women? Everybody's beautiful, by the way. Have you seen sort of the Instagram worthy sort of wedding women that have the beautiful silk dress that's quite fitted with
Hmm.
a frame, and it's really simple, and then they have their hair in like a beautiful little updo, and then just the longest train that goes past their dress of their veil. That looks pretty cool.
Mm.
Bit of a step, somebody stepped on it, it'll like yank your head back, but it looks great in the photos. In practicality in England with the rain, it would just be a big muddy.
Dragging behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. If your wedding's in Mykonos or a sunny destination, go for it.
Wear your bikini and just a veil. Why not?
Or in your case, M joggers, tracksuit.
The veil. Look like I'm on a hen do. Is
Cutting the cake? Question mark. That's all we got from that one.
um so the cutting of the cake traditionally represents the first task as a married couple.
Oh.
So like in the past, the bride would cut the cake and give it out to her guests as like the first task of her being the wife. And then as weddings got bigger, the groom got involved because the cutting of the cake was taking too long. Because you used to not just cut into it, you used to actually cut the whole cake up,
Wow.
like serve it to your guests. It was like part of the proceedings of the day. But now it's turned into a photo opportunity, just sort of cutting the cake, where you have to then get everybody that's having a drink outside back into the venue to cut the cake for 2 seconds for everybody to go. So it becomes more of a logistical nightmare than an actual thing, because you then cut into it and give it to the caterers to cut.
So my sister did exactly that for her wedding. She cut the cake once. Nobody was there watching. They then cut the cake for the second time. Probably half the guests were watching. And the next thing I know, somebody's coming out saying, "Oh yeah, they've cut the cake." Have they?
That's what happened at my wedding. We said it was time to do that, so we got everybody to round and we cut the cake, and then everybody disappeared again because we'd got the 5 photos. And then I realised that my mum wasn't there because she was either at the bar or in the loo or something, and she got really upset because she'd missed part of the day. But it's just such a moment in time where you're trying to gather everybody, that
Mm.
it's hard to keep track of everybody. Um, because like I say, logistically getting everybody together for 2 minutes to, it's I would say it's
Yeah.
not that important.
I didn't do it at my wedding, and when I get married for the second time, I will not be doing it at that wedding either.
I just want a preference the second time will be with the same.
Well, always marry for money, Em. Ian conned me. Just kidding. Uh, Different top table to the usual traditions.
Yeah, so traditionally the top table is like a long table, isn't it? And then you'd have about 6 people on there. So if you were to look at the table and let's go from right to left, you'd have the maid of honor, the groom's dad, the bride's mum, the groom, then the bride, then the bride's dad, the groom's mum, and then the best man. So you go female, male, and then you swap the parentage over. So they're mixed up.
Hmm.
But I think as family dynamics and family trees are getting more what's the right word here?
Diverse.
Diverse. That's not always possible. So you end up with it being tricky to follow that rigid. So you either have more people because you've got step parents, or you've got two groomsmen, or you've got your maid of honor or your chief bridesmaid is actually sat with their partner, and so it's I think it's normally about 8 people. You don't want many more than that because the table becomes too big and takes up too much space.
I also think that if you're getting married for the second or third time, you're probably gonna have grown up or teenage kids at that point too. And I think I've seen a couple of people that I follow on Instagram get married over the last few months, and they are second, third marriages, sort of further through their lifetime. They've got teenage kids, they've got grown up kids, and actually they just want it to be about their family,
Yeah,
not necessarily we've got a best man and my dad's giving me away. It's more about their current family unit, whether that's blended, whether that's step, whether that's adopted, whatever that is. That tends to be the focus more than anything else.
yeah. I found a really good article that hitched.co.uk wrote about the different ways that you can do a top table, and it talked about the traditional way. It talked about having your speech givers only. So it's just the people giving the speeches, so it's easy to navigate and pass the microphone. Or they talked about the sweetheart table. They talked about just having your chief bridesmaids and your groomsmen. And there's all different. So what we'll do is we'll link it in the post that we do for on Instagram, because it's really good and it gives you different options. And I think it'll be really helpful for people that are struggling to work out what they want to go for.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea. We're nearly there, guys. Bear with. Two more to go. Um, Old, new, borrowed, blue. I guess. Well, the person's actually said, what does it mean?
So it's something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. And then traditionally, this is something that your bridesmaid would work out for you.
Oh,
So
really?
they'd look at it and sort it all out for you and give you the gifts of whatever it is throughout the process of planning the wedding.
I thought it was the mother of the bride.
They often do the something old because they have the family, but yeah, the bridesmaids tend to be the ones that organize that.
The shock on my face, because as number one bridesmaid of the year, never have I ever done that.
So something old signifies continuity through your relationship. So there's a continuity through your strong family ties. The something new is optimism for the future. So we're giving you something new because you've got a whole new life ahead of you. Something borrowed represents happiness, and the love of your friends and family. And then there's something blue stands for love and fidelity. And you can often do them in groups. So you can get something new and blue, whether it be a little charm for a necklace, something for your bouquet, and you can often do the something old and something borrowed together. So your nan would let you borrow her earrings, or a family, like a little pouch that you put in your bag with a few bits in. So
Mhm.
you can mix them. But yeah, bridesmaid should sort it out for you.
Noted for the next term.
I don't know if that's a given, but it often falls to the bridesmaids to sort out.
I do remember asking my sister, so that was the last time I was a bridesmaid, that was in July. I do remember asking her, has she got it sorted? Do I need to do anything? But her mum had already covered it off for her and told her you don't need to worry about that. But now you say that, when it was my wedding, my something borrowed was my sister-in-law's earrings that she wore on her wedding day that were gifted by my stepmom and her now mother-in-law.
That's cute.
So I chose to wear those. She gifted those to me for the day as my something borrowed. Did I have anything old?
A lot of people do the something new as their wedding dress, which I ordinarily you pay for your own wedding dress, and I think they're supposed to be gifts, so that doesn't really fit.
Mm.
So if somebody bought your dress for you, that could count, but So your something new would be your shoes, because your husband bought your shoes
Yeah.
as a gift. Didn't just
Yeah.
pay for them, like, you know, sharing the payment of the wedding. He bought them as a gift for you, and they were new. So
Yes.
that would count as that.
And the old was his grandmother's diamond from her engagement ring set as a necklace.
Perfect.
And then my blue was in my engagement ring.
Yeah.
What were yours?
I had something borrowed, was my nan's pearl earrings. Something new was I had a little bracelet that my mum bought. Well, actually, my dress could have counted as new as well, because my mum did buy that. Something blue, I had like a little star on said garter that we talked about earlier. Something old, I would have counted with my nan's earrings too, because they're like a family thing.
Last one, Em. Spending the night together before the wedding or spending the night apart?
So again, traditionally, this is a virtue thing. So you wouldn't have lived with your significant other or the person you were marrying before you got married.
Can you imagine marrying somebody who you had never lived with?
I know, mental, is like, don't actually know the person, but it worked out. All them people that
Really?
all them people that are still married, like my nana and granddad, they all followed that rule, really, didn't they?
I just can't do it.
Yes, it doesn't really, it doesn't. So the night before thing doesn't really. The tradition behind it was because you never did, you didn't live together. Um, so it doesn't really stand anymore, because most people co-inhabit for years before they. Lots of people already have children before they get married, so the tradition doesn't really work. I would say technically, on a sort of no on a logistical level, being apart helps, because it's one less place, because you don't really get ready together, because the grooms go and get ready and have jobs normally in the morning, and the bride side of things is a lot more beauty and that type of thing, so they tend to be in different spaces anyway. So logistically, you don't have to get from one place to another, because you're just where you're getting ready. But traditionally, it doesn't really matter, because we're all living in sin.
Well, you might have been.
Little Jen over there. Mm.
Oh God. That's it, Em. We've gone through lots we had so many of those come through, just wedding traditions and superstitions that's on people's minds, all of the bits and pieces that we've gone through. But I think there's so many more that we could have covered. So if you've got any other wedding traditions and superstitions that you want us to cover off in maybe a part two, then please get in touch using our Instagram account at the I Do Crew podcast. Also use that handle to catch up on all things podcast news and new subjects. Send us your dilemmas or questions. And next week we're talking home or away weddings. But for now, it's bye from me.
And it's bye from me.
You've been listening to the I Do Crew podcast with Jen and Emma. Keep up to date with our podcast news by following our I Do Crew podcast Instagram account. Thanks for listening.